Maya sat alone in her small apartment, staring at the rejection email on her phone screen for the third time that week. We regret to inform you that your English proficiency does not meet our requirements. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. She had dreamed of this job for years, a position that would lift her family out of poverty, that would make her mother's sacrifices mean something. But her voice, her accent, her hesitation when she spoke English, they had failed her again. She pressed her forehead against the cool window glass, watching the city lights flicker in the darkness below. 28 years old, and she felt like she was running out of time, running out of chances, running out of hope. But what Maya didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know in that moment of crushing defeat, was that her journey was only just beginning. And it would start not with a classroom, not with an expensive course, but with a single voice coming through her headphones on an ordinary Tuesday morning. The next day, Maya dragged herself through her usual routine. Work at the convenience store, the same faces, the same tired conversations in her native tongue. But something felt different as she walked home that evening. The rejection still stung, yes, but beneath the pain, something else stirred. A small, stubborn spark of defiance. She refused to let this be the end of her story. That night, as the city settled into its rhythm of distant traffic and muffled conversations through thin walls, Maya sat cross-legged on her bed and opened her phone. She searched for something, anything, that might help. How to practice English every day. Her finger trembled slightly as she pressed search. Hundreds of results flooded her screen. Courses promising fluency in 30 days. Apps with cartoon characters and point systems. Videos with impossibly confident speakers. It all felt overwhelming, impossible, like trying to climb a mountain with no equipment and no guide. Then she found it. A simple podcast. No fancy graphics, no promises of overnight success. Just a warm voice and a title that spoke directly to her exhausted heart. English Unleashed. She pressed play, not expecting much, just hoping for something, anything, to make her feel less alone in her struggle. Hello and welcome, the voice began, calm, clear, unhurried. I'm here to help you speak English more naturally, step by step, day by day. Maya closed her eyes and listened. Really listened. Not just to the words, but to the gentle certainty in the speaker's tone. To the way he seemed to understand exactly what she was feeling without her having to say a word. Many people think they need to move to the UK or America to speak English well, the voice continued. But that's not true. You don't need to live in London. You don't need a native speaker next to you. Something inside Maya's chest loosened. For so long, she had believed that her dreams were impossible because she couldn't afford to travel, couldn't afford expensive schools, couldn't escape the limitations of a small life. But this voice was telling her something different, something that felt almost too good to be true. What you need are small, smart steps, he said. Steps that are easy to repeat. Steps that fit into your daily life. Maya opened her eyes and stared at the ceiling of her tiny room. Small steps. She could do small steps. She had to believe she could do small steps. The podcast continued, introducing a concept that sounded strange at first, shadowing. The idea was simple. Listen to someone speaking English and repeat exactly what they say, like an echo. No stopping, no translating, no overthinking. Just mimicking the sound, the rhythm, the flow. Let's try it together, the voice invited. I want to speak English fluently. Maya hesitated. Her roommate was asleep in the next room. The walls were thin, but something compelled her to whisper the words anyway, her voice barely audible even to herself. I want to speak English fluently. It felt awkward, uncomfortable. Her tongue stumbled over the syllables. I listen to English every day, the voice continued. I listen to English every day, Maya repeated, a little louder this time. Shadowing helps me speak better. Shadowing helps me speak better. There was no applause, no immediate transformation. But as Maya finished repeating that third sentence, she felt something shift inside her. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, like the first crack appearing in ice before the spring thaw. She had spoken. She had tried. And the world hadn't ended. In that moment, Maya made a decision. She would practice. Every single day. No matter how tired she was, no matter how discouraged she felt, no matter how many times she stumbled, she would show up for herself in a way no one else could. The next morning, Maya woke up 30 minutes earlier than usual. While the city was still grey and half asleep, she put in her headphones and pressed play on the podcast again. This time, she didn't just listen. She shadowed. Walking to work, she repeated every sentence she heard. Her pronunciation was rough, her rhythm off, but she kept going. People on the street glanced at her curiously, this young woman muttering to herself in a foreign language. But Maya didn't care. For the first time in months, she felt like she was moving forward instead of standing still. At work, during her break, she changed her phone settings to English. It was jarring at first. Suddenly, every notification, every menu, every button spoke to her in the language of her dreams and her frustrations. But she left it that way, letting the unfamiliar words seep into her consciousness. Settings, notifications, brightness, update available. She read each word slowly, feeling them in her mouth, committing them to memory not through forced study but through simple, repeated exposure. Days turned into weeks. Maya established a routine that felt less like studying and more like breathing. In the morning, before the world demanded her attention, she shadowed. During her commute, she listened. At work, between customers, she thought in English, simple sentences that narrated her experience. I'm tired. I want to go home. The customer is smiling. At night, before sleep claimed her, she wrote 3 sentences in a small notebook she kept by her bed. Nothing elaborate, nothing perfect. Just 3 honest sentences about her day. Today was long. My feet hurt. But I practiced English. A customer complimented my smile. It made me happy. I want to speak to them in English someday. I feel different. Stronger maybe. Like I'm becoming someone new. The sentences were simple, sometimes grammatically imperfect, but they were hers. And with each one she wrote, she was building something. Not just language skills, but confidence. Not just vocabulary, but belief. 6 weeks into her daily practice, something unexpected happened. Maya was restocking shelves at the convenience store when a tourist walked in. A woman in her 50s with a backpack and a confused expression, clearly trying to find something. Excuse me, the woman said in English, approaching Maya hesitantly. Do you know where I can find water? Bottled water. For a split second, Maya's old instinct kicked in, the urge to panic, to gesture helplessly, to call for her manager who spoke better English. But then she remembered all those mornings of shadowing, all those nights of writing, all those small, persistent steps. She took a breath and spoke. Yes, Maya said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Follow me, please. It's in aisle 3. The words weren't perfect, but they were clear, understandable, real. The woman's face lit up with gratitude. Oh, thank you so much. You speak English very well. Maya led her to the refrigerated section, and as they walked, the woman continued talking about her trip, about how beautiful the city was, about how kind everyone had been. Maya didn't understand every word, but she understood enough. And more importantly, she responded. I hope you enjoy your visit, Maya said when they reached the water. Our city is beautiful. After the woman left, Maya stood in aisle 3, trembling slightly, a smile spreading across her face that she couldn't contain. She had done it. A real conversation, spontaneous and natural, with an actual English speaker. It wasn't a job interview or a formal test. It was life, unfolding in the language she had been too afraid to claim as her own. Tomorrow is important, but it's not everything. No matter what happens, I've already won. I've already proven to myself that I can change, that I can grow, that I can become someone I never thought I could be. 5 months ago, I couldn't speak a full sentence without panicking. Now I have conversations. Now I think in English. Now I'm not afraid of my own voice. That's the real victory. Everything else is just a bonus. The interview room was smaller than she expected. Across the table sat 2 people, a local manager and an expatriate director from the company's headquarters. They smiled warmly as Maya entered, and she felt her hands trembling slightly as she sat down. "Thank you for coming, Maya," the director said in English. "Tell us a little about yourself." Maya took a breath. She thought about all those mornings shadowing podcasts while the city slept. All those nights writing 3 sentences before surrendering to exhaustion. All those small, invisible moments when she chose to try instead of giving up. And then she spoke. Not perfectly. Not without an accent. But clearly, confidently, authentically. She told them about her work at the convenience store, about her determination to improve herself, about the daily practice that had transformed not just her English but her entire relationship with challenge and growth. She spoke about the tourist who had complimented her English, about the online community that had supported her, about learning to turn every small moment of her day into an opportunity to practice. The interviewers leaned forward, engaged, impressed not just by her language skills but by her story, her dedication, her obvious passion for continuous learning. When the interview ended 40 minutes later, 40 minutes of conversation entirely in English, the director shook Maya's hand and said something that made her heart soar. "Your English is excellent, Maya. But more than that, your attitude is exactly what we are looking for. We'll be in touch very soon." Maya got the job. The call came 3 days later, and when she heard the words, "Would like to offer you the position," she had to sit down on her bed, her legs suddenly unable to hold her weight. She cried, deep, shaking sobs that released months of tension, fear, and stubborn hope. Her mother, hearing the tears, rushed into her room in panic. "What's wrong? What happened?" "Nothing's wrong, Mama," Maya managed to say through her tears. "Everything's right. I got the job. The one I wanted. The one I thought was impossible." Her mother held her, and they cried together, tears of relief, of joy, of gratitude for all the small, invisible battles that Maya had fought and won in the privacy of her own determination. That night, Maya opened her notebook and wrote more than 3 sentences. She wrote about the journey, about the transformation, about discovering that the barriers holding her back weren't external but internal. She wrote about learning that change doesn't require grand gestures or perfect conditions, just consistent, small, brave actions repeated day after day. And then she wrote something that would guide her for the rest of her life. "I learned that fluency isn't just about language. It's about believing you deserve to take up space in the conversation. It's about trusting your voice even when it shakes. It's about showing up for yourself when it would be easier to give up. English gave me a better job, yes. But the daily practice of trying, failing, and trying again, that gave me something more valuable. It gave me myself." 1 year later, Maya sat in her new office, small but bright, with a window overlooking the city she had once viewed only from below. She had been promoted once already. Her English had continued to improve, but more than that, her confidence had bloomed into something steady and unshakable. She still practiced every day. Not because she had to anymore, but because it had become part of who she was. The shadowing, the thinking in English, the daily recordings, they were no longer tools for survival but expressions of her commitment to growth. One afternoon, she received a message through the company's internal system. It was from a young intern, recently hired, who had heard about Maya's story from a colleague. "Hi Maya," the message read. "I hope this isn't too forward, but I heard you learned English mostly on your own, through daily practice. I'm struggling so much with my language skills, and I keep thinking I'll never be good enough. Do you have any advice?" Maya stared at the message for a long moment, remembering the girl she had been just over a year ago, sitting in a tiny apartment, staring at a rejection email, convinced her dreams were impossible. She began typing her response, and as she wrote, she realized she had become what she had needed most during her darkest moment. Proof that change was possible, that ordinary people could achieve extraordinary things through nothing more than persistent, daily effort. "Dear friend," she wrote, "the secret isn't complicated. You don't need to be special or gifted. You just need to show up for yourself every single day, even when, especially when, you don't feel like it. Practice doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be consistent. Start small. Shadow a podcast for 5 minutes. Think in English during your commute. Write 3 sentences before bed. These tiny actions seem insignificant in the moment, but they compound into transformation. I know because I lived it. You can too. I believe in you." She sent the message and returned to her work, smiling to herself. Because Maya had learned the most important lesson of all, the voice she had been searching for, the one she thought she needed to find in textbooks or classrooms or foreign countries. It had been inside her all along, just waiting for permission to speak. And now, every single day, she gave herself that permission. She spoke. She tried. She grew. And in doing so, she became living proof that the distance between who you are and who you want to become is measured not in grand transformations, but in small, daily steps, repeated with love, with patience, with unwavering faith in your own becoming. The journey had been long. The road had been hard. But Maya had found her voice. And nothing could take that away from her.